okay, well, that's sales organization is one side of it, but you got to have the right data on the front side. You need predictive analytics. So we're going to connect you with so-and-so on that. And so when we document those needs that you need to fill that hole in your business, we actually physically put them into a document. And then within 72 hours of getting back to, after the dust settles from the event, our team has made those connections to those individuals via text message or email. We recap what the need was and say, hey, you guys handle it, jump on the phone and get this thing moving. Right?
Yeah. Welcome to the Accelerated Investor Podcast with Josh Cantwell. If you love entrepreneurship and investing in real estate, then you are in the right place. Josh is the CEO of Freeland Ventures Real Estate Private Equity and has personally invested in well over 500 properties all across the country. He's also made hundreds of private lender loans and owns over 1,000 units of apartments. Josh is an expert at raising private money for deals, and he prides himself on never having had a boss in his entire adult life. Josh and his team also mentor investors and entrepreneurs from all over the world. He doesn't dream about doing deals. He actually does them, and so do his listeners and students. Now sit back, listen, learn, and accelerate your business, your life, and your investing with the Accelerated Investor Podcast.
Hey, welcome back to Accelerated Investor. I am so excited to be with you again for another podcast, another interview. I'm so excited to be inside of your head, whether you're out on the road, whether you're in your car, on your way to an appointment, going to see a property, or at the gym, or maybe just hanging out in your house, late at night, winding down and looking for some new strategies, some new ideas. I'm so excited with all the ratings, the reviews, all the sharing on the different social platforms that everybody's been doing around Accelerated Investors. So I just want to express my gratitude and say thank you for engaging with me on a weekly basis. Today, I'm here with my good friend, Jason Medley. Jason is the CEO and founder of one of the nation's top real estate mastermind groups called Collective Genius. Jason has been involved and owns over 1,300 units of multifamily properties, made over 1,500 loans, and he is one of the nation's leading connectors of real estate entrepreneurs through his organization, Collective Genius. Jason and I also have a long relationship before his start of Collective Genius and my foray into multifamily properties and my private equity fund. Jason and I worked together on a lot of different short sales. He was an affiliate of ours. He funded a number of different short sale transactions for me and for my clients and students. I've known Jason for, going on 13, 14, maybe 12, 13 years, but we have not spent much time together in the last 2 or 3 years. So I am in particular excited to be with you today, Jason, and reconnect. So how are you, my friend?
I'm good, brother. I got a lot to be thankful for, a lot to be grateful for. I always say when somebody asks me that question, right, how you doing? It's like, hey, when you reach a certain age, you got kids, you got a business, you got a lot of responsibility. You're always going to have challenges. Just better get better at handling them, And so I'm like anybody else. I got as my mom would say, the bag of rocks, but I'm getting pretty good at carrying them,
Yeah.
So things are good. Business is amazing. My family is happy and healthy. And so, everything over top of that's pretty much a bonus.
Fantastic.
I wanted to tell you something too, real quick. I don't know if you know this, right? We just kind of reconnected by chance here recently, but you and I are actually invested on a bunch of the same deals together with Bryce.
I'm very aware. You bet. Yeah. So Jason runs Collective Genius, and one of his members is Tim Bratz. Many of you guys have heard me talk about some of the apartment investments we've done with Tim. We have over $10 million of my money and other investors' money that I work with in apartment deals with Tim and Jack Petrick and a number of different operators. We've got a big investment with Tim, and Tim is a member of Collective Genius, and Jason is also an investor, a passive investor in those deals. So, I'm aware of that. I saw your name and your company on the roster of owners, which is always kind of cool to look at. So I wanted to talk to Jason today as we kind of got ready for this interview. Jason's had the privilege to be exposed and experience an opportunity to meet with and talk with a lot of different real estate investors and very high performers. Collective Genius is a mastermind group of some of the nation's top performing real estate investors in the single family, multifamily, commercial, and private lending world. Jason's had the opportunity to mentor them, to connect them. And Jason, you've seen them probably at their best and at their worst. You've seen them when they were small and big. You've probably seen companies grow and companies, cannibalize themselves. You've had an amazing experience to connect them and be around them. And you've, of course, probably witnessed certain traits or certain characteristics of these entrepreneurs and what they've done. Before we jump into the traits, just tell our audience a little bit more about Collective Genius and what you've built.
Yeah. The best way that I could define the Collective Genius is a lot of people call it, a mastermind, and that's probably a term that you may be more familiar with. But really, to me, it's a community, right? And what we do is we place high caliber real estate investors on the fast track to scaling their business, building wealth, and giving back, which is a huge part of our organization, because life is way bigger than just, stacking up a bunch of paper.
Right.
So, but that's what we do. We are a very calculated organization. This is not the type of mastermind where it's like, hey, just come out and we're going to plop you in a room with other smart people and, we'll hang out for a couple of days and you guys go on about your way and, hope something really good happens.
Right.
We don't operate like that. We operate with a very high level of attention. We are physically, every person goes through like a hot seat process and they're talking about the challenges and what they need help with. We physically document who can help them, and we actually force connect those individuals. We don't leave it up to them to create their own success. We help manifest those connections. We do a lot of killer stuff. We actually have for their second in command. There's typically their COOs of their organization. We are committed to, Josh, the best way to sum it up is what you and I were talking about, I think, before the camera started rolling, which is we are ruthlessly and relentlessly in pursuit of relationships that create results for our members. And
nice.
One of the things we're going to talk about today is characteristics of high-level real estate entrepreneurs. And one of those characteristics is realizing at some point you can scale your business through, systems, strategies, resources, and then you can scale your business by up-leveling your Rolodex.
Yeah.
Right? Not that they're separate from one another. They typically work hand in hand, but that's what we do. When people step into the Collective Genius, they can up-level their business, they can scale and grow in the facets of their business because of the Rolodex and the connections that we manifest.
No
just
doubt.
Like you said, you committed $10 million of investors' money to Tim Brotz's deals. I've raised several $1 million for Tim. I'm personally invested with Tim. I just talked to him yesterday. Hey man, I just got a big loan back. It materialized. I need to put $500,000 to work. Let's do something.
Yeah.
We're on a 10-minute call and I'm going to be sending him the money. So it's that type of deal flow and connections that, make CG.
Yeah. And the bigger the deal, the more the relationships matter. When you're just wholesaling properties or maybe doing 2, 3, 4, 5 deals a month, you can often do that by yourself or do that with a small team. You can do it through manual direct to seller marketing, through direct mail and through PPC ads and through, billboards and all different kinds of bandit signs. But the really big transactions, the 100 units, the 500 unit deals, the 730 unit deal that we're in, the 216 unit deal, those are all happening through relationships, right? So your organization pursuing relationships is also allowing those investors and the members of the CG to do bigger deals, because usually those bigger deals don't happen through a direct mail campaign, right? They're not happening through a billboard.
Yeah.
So relationships allow you to do bigger things. So any investor that wants to be like, okay, I want to go from residential to multifamily or residential to commercial, it has to be a very intentional process to, like you said, expand the Rolodex and expand the relationships, which is you're purposely connecting those people, which is awesome. So tell me a little bit more about CG. How does it operate? Like, I know you get people in a room. Is it like 4 times a year? How many people are typically there? And then tell me a little bit about some of the members. Like, you don't have to tell them by name, but describe some of their businesses to our audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that CG kind of functions operationally, it sounds like what you're asking about is we do get together 4 times a year. We go back and forth between Tampa, Florida, and San Diego. Nice waterfront venues. I'm a fan of the view, as always. But what we do is we split. We have about 138 members right now, and we split them down into 6 different groups. We run 3 groups of about 25 folks, Monday, Tuesday. We run 3 groups of about 25 folks in each of those groups, Thursday, Friday. And on Wednesday, they all are in the same room together. It's not a mastermind format. It's more of an event style structure on Wednesday.
Got it.
And instead of just getting exposure to the 25 or so folks in your mastermind, you're exposed to everyone else in the organization, right? So once you get there, and something that's cool about our structure is we're truly looking for the right fit. If you flip 1,000 houses a year, but are just a taker, you're not going to be able to buy a Collective Genius membership, right? At the same time, if all you want to do is flip 1,000 houses, you don't care about any other facet of your life, we're probably not the right fit for you, right? So our model is structured in a way to where we kind of go through a screening process to determine, like, on the surface, if we're a potential fit. And if we are, cool, you show up. There's no pressure. It's super laid back, and we put you through what's called a hot seat process. And so there's 2 components to that process. And basically, you have to share a system, a strategy, a resource, something of value with the other people in your room that we often refer to as your board of directors, right? Because that's kind of what that group of 25 or so folks creates. And so you're going to give value to them. And then once you've done that, you're going to shift into discussing what your challenges are, right? And then that's when that group becomes your board of advisors, if you will. So, let's say, for example, you've been buying houses at the courthouse for 10 years, 150 deals a year, you've been smashing it, and the hedge funds roll up into town and start paying highest and best for everything. Well, you got a problem, right?
Right.
So you might say, okay, look, I've got to build a sales organization. I've had an operationally based structure for a while. Hey, I'm at the auction. Yes or no? Yes, I won the bid. We put it through the operation machine, rehab the house. And so you say, now I've got to build a sales organization. Well, you might be sitting in a room with a guy like Jason Byrne out of Denver, who has, I think, 5 acquisitions managers, probably sends 200,000 postcards a month, and has a sales team dialed in like high-powered assassins, right?
Right.
And so we then say, hey, we're going to place you. We're going to get you on the phone, and Jason's actually going to help you. And matter of fact, we do a lot of office visits. So if you guys connect on the phone call, and feel like you could maybe drink a beer together, he'll have you out to his office, and you can spend 2 days there and really dig in and get the systems, the strategy, see how he's running the business, right? And so
that's the intentional connection that you're talking about, intentional relationship building, not just putting them in a room and letting them figure it out, but because intimately,
listen, you're going to get me all excited now.
This guy's good at, that guy's good at, this guy's good at wholesaling and direct mail and sales organizations, that guy's multifamily, raising capital. And you need to know you. Let you guys connect. Here you go. Sit down together.
Yeah, we don't just say, hey, you should talk to this person. We actually document, okay, you need to build your sales organization. Okay, well, that's sales organization is one side of it, but you got to have the right data on the front side. You need predictive analytics. So we're going to connect you with so-and-so on that. And so when we document those needs that you need to fill that hole in your business, we actually physically put them into a document. And then within 72 hours of getting back to, after the dust settles from the event, our team has made those connections to those individuals via text message or email. We recap what the need was and say, hey, you guys handle it, jump on the phone and get this thing moving. Right?
Yeah, killer.
We call it forced connection, because the reality of it is that most even highly talented entrepreneurs will get up there, talk about their problems. Everything sounds great. All these people are going to help me. They don't write anything down.
And no phone numbers, no emails, no connection. Then they got to figure out, like, hey, I'm at the bar and that guy said something cool, but there's 25 people in the room. What's his name? What's his number? What's his email? Like, how do I connect with that guy again?
Yeah. We take all of that out of the mix, and we facilitate. Almost use the word force. It sounds a little ugly, but that's what makes it tick. We actually have a slide in our deck, in our presentation format, that says, if I could visit someone's office in the Collective Genius and see how they do X, right, I would love to go do that. Well, They tell us what X is, right? And when they tell us what X is, hey, I did 70 turnkey transactions this year in addition to my retail rehabs, and I really want to scale that side of the business up. I'd love to go to a turnkey provider's office. Okay. Cool. We'll connect you with the Missy McCalls of the world, the Mark Delatours of the world, the people that are doing big volume, to say, hey, which one of you guys would be willing to host Josh at your office, right? So we are hyper aggressive, and that's why we retain a lot of our members. They keep coming back because we take a lot of responsibility for creating results for them.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So that's awesome. I appreciate the background. And in my newest real estate investing book, The Flip System, you'll learn the proven secrets and strategies that I've used to be a successful real estate investor. You'll also hear the story of my journey from quitting my job to doing over 2,000 units of apartments. The Flip System is now available for a limited time, and you can grab your free copy at getflipsystem.com/podcast. You'll learn the same proven principles and secrets and investing strategies that I used to quit my job and pursue a life of financial freedom. In this book, I'm sharing exactly how I was able to personally close over 750 profitable real estate deals, make over 400 private lender loans, raise over $30 million, and acquire over 2,000 units of cash flowing apartments. Get my newest book now for free at getflipsystem.com/podcast. That's getflipsystem.com/podcast. And
Sure.
it just sounds like, I've been involved in a lot of masterminds, and you're kind of there, you learn a few things, and you leave kind of on your own, right, to reconnect with everybody. So I love the idea of your role sitting in the CEO seat and the chief connector seat to make sure that those connections are made and happen. So if we look at the traits of these elite guys that you've mentored, that you've been around, that you've helped them connect with each other, one of the connections we've talked about, so number one, is relationships. They're intentional about building relationships, and relationships not just for the purpose of business and making more money, but for the intention of helping each other, giving value to each other. And when you give, you always receive. You give, you always receive. So I imagine trait number one would be they're intentional about building relationships for both business and family and money and connection and giving value, building relationships. On top of that, what other traits have you witnessed in these elite entrepreneurs, these elite real estate investors, that you think you see the same trait over and over again?
Yeah, I think there are multiple traits, quite honestly. And, the guys there and gals there at the top of the heap, people that we would consider visionary leaders, right? Visionary leaders. There's a difference between a business owner and a visionary leader. Just because you own a business, you got a shingle outside on your door, have paperwork says you own an entity of some sort, doesn't necessarily make you a leader or a visionary leader for that matter. And so when I look at a visionary leader, that's, to me, that the top of the heap, they're people who their business has clearly defined core values. They have clearly defined strategic objectives. They know who they are, what they do specifically, what they stand for, and what they stand against, right? Because when you create those borders, when you put those boundaries in place, you create an environment where your team and your customers, they're either with you or they're not, right? Because this is who we are, this is what we do, this is how we do it, this is how we operate. And when you reach that spot, you determine who your customer is and who your customer isn't, who you're going to hire and who you're not, based upon those defining measures, those core values, those strategic objectives, right? And so I think the clearer your vision is, and then more clearly defined boundaries you to put in place in your business, that is a huge characteristic, right?
Huge characteristic.
Huge
I love
characteristic.
it. I want to repeat this, Jason, just so we don't lose it, because I wrote it down. But clear vision is really the big trait that you're talking about. But on a subset of that, in a more defined way, you said clearly defined values, objectives, clearly defined. They know exactly what they do, like as far as what their strategy is. Mm-hmm. They also know what they stand for and what they stand against. Right. So I wanted to repeat that. I caught that. I thought that was a very, very important part of what you said. Defined values, objectives. They know exactly what they do, what they stand for and what they stand against. I heard a quote once, I think it was from Dan Gilbert. I think the owner of Quicken Loans, the owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers, and he said something along the lines of, if our team and our staff know who we are, then they'll know what to do. And you said that in a very similar way with a little bit more depth to it, right? They know who we are. Like, if you're investing in multifamily and that's all you do is apartments, well, then you know, like if a self-storage deal comes across or a retail deal or a flip, you're not even going to look at it, right? That's because we don't do that. Like, it might be an awesome opportunity. We could make $100,000, but we're not going to do it. So, any other thoughts around that? Because I think that's a huge piece of it is right there.
Yeah, I've got what those things do, right? All of those things bridle, for lack of a better term, they bridle the vision, right? A lot of people are like, man, I'm a visionary, right? Yeah. I'm a visionary. Everybody wants to be a visionary.
Yeah. You don't call yourself a visionary. Other people call you a visionary. You don't give yourself the visionary title. It doesn't work that way.
Exactly. And the hard truth of that is unbridled vision is toxic to a business. Unbridled vision is toxic to a business. And those things that we just talked about, core values, strategic objectives, knowing who you are, what you stand for, what you stand against, that bridles a vision and points it in a direction, right? That your team and your customers and everyone can get behind versus like, listen, I get 100 ideas every day.
Every second, right?
I mean, it's ridiculous. But at the end of the day, you've got to ask yourself tough questions. Do I have the team right now to implement these ideas? Are they relative to the targets that we've set for 2020? Are they, like, you know, so that bridling of the vision takes place when you define those things that we just talked about. And although this may sound contrary, I ask you to think about it for a minute. Bridled vision is way better than unbridled, cut it loose, cavalier. Running a sustainable long-term business takes a lot of discipline.
Oh, yeah.
If you're not going to be a flash in the pan. You know,
it takes a lot of discipline. A lot to stick with it for the same thing for a long time. I mean, they say genius is doing something successfully for 10 years, right?
Well,
how many people are willing to do it for 10 years or go into it thinking, I'm going to do this for 10 years, and then all of a sudden I'm going to be an overnight success 10 years later, right?
Well, and to parlay off of that, here's the next big characteristic, right? The people that have long-term sustainable success, not somebody who got into flipping houses or buying apartments when the market was good and they were being carried by the wave, right? But somebody that has long-term sustainable success has ruthless focus. I see so many people, even people, I mean, I got a lot of counsel, right? I've been doing this for 10 plus years, 10 years in February, actually. And I can tell people sometime, listen, you're just getting your core business fired up and stabilized and wildly profitable. You got that garden groomed, those roses popping out, and you're going to walk over here and start a CRN or a coaching or whatever, right? You're just getting your core business to where it's firing on all cylinders. There's certain things that got to be in place before you can take your eye off of it, right? It's not that it can't be done.
And then even then taking your eye off it is like, I think we get almost, it's like a sinful, I don't know if sinful is the right word, but it was my friend Vinny Fisher that said to me one time, he runs another mastermind for business, a lot of e-com guys, you know Vinny, right?
Yeah.
Vinny said to me, just because you built one successful business, right? I don't know if my phone's dinging off here, but I got to shut it down. It's going off. Anyway, he said, I've got to remember this because it was so powerful. He said, how can you be so arrogant to think that just because you built one successful business, you can build a second one and do it 3 times as fast and make 3 times as much money? And his words to say, like, that's why I said simple, it was a very powerful word he used. And it was something along the lines of, how can you be so arrogant to think that after 5 years or 10 years of fighting, scratching, clawing, focus, mobilizing your team, you finally have this successful business that you're going to now ignore that one. You're so ignorant to think that ignorant and arrogant to think that you can ignore that one. And you're just going to go start this other one and it's going to be so much more successful, so much faster.
See, here's the funny part about that, right? You forgot the pain.
Pain.
You forgot the pain. You forgot the late nights. You forgot the anguish. You forgot the suffering that it took. You forgot the sacrifice that it took to get you there. It's like, when you talk to women about having children, it's like, are you guys done? You're going to keep having babies? And it's like they have another baby because they've got the pain associated with having the physical pain. I don't mean to take that with a grain of salt, but like you forget that and you're like, well, I'm just going to jump over here and start this thing up, and it's that lack of focus. It's detrimental. I will tell you, I think it's probably the single biggest downfall for most entrepreneurs is a lack of focus, because the harsh reality of it is you can have a business up and running and spitting off some money, right? Like some really good money, and not still really know how to run the business, right? One of the parameters that we have in place at CG is like, if you're not flipping at least 50 houses or have at least 50 units in your rental portfolio, or we're getting ready to set a parameter in place for multifamily, probably, 400 to 500 doors. One of the reasons we put that in place is because that's almost like the break point where it's like, hey, you might know if you're doing 50 deals a year or whatever, you might know how to flip houses or whatever, but you're just getting to a point where you really understand how to run the business.
I mean, when I started my short sale business with our mutual friend, Greg Clement, my former business partner, we were doing 100 short sale deals a year just purely out of muscle. It was like we had some systems, but shit, man, we just got there early. We were willing to stay late. We were willing to hustle, focus, market, mobilize our team. But we were so young and so immature, and everybody looked at us like, holy cow, these guys are doing like $1 million a year in gross revenue. And it was amazing what we were able to accomplish. But we were so young, so immature. Like, we have systems. Yeah, we have systems. No, it wasn't systems, dude. It was like, get to the ass. You get your ass to the office and work 12 hours a day. That was our system. Yeah. And we built some things around it. Then we built RealFlow, the software. And then some of the systems actually took shape, right? They took the shape of form of a CRM. But we again, back then, and even at times now, like, the focus will change a little bit. Like right now we're pivoting from single family in our fund almost exclusively into multifamily because of the cash flow, because of the long-term wealth accumulation. And you learn things along the way, right? But you don't learn things. There's a difference between learning something and making a strategic pivot and having your focus go somewhere because you know that's where you want to go for the next 3, 5, 10 years. It's a big difference in that versus every day changing what you're focusing on because you just have shiny object syndrome every day.
Yeah.
Big difference.
When typically what has to happen in order to do that is you've got to create enough profitability in your business where you can step back, know that that's going to keep coming in while you elevate up and look out over the horizon to see a different vision for yourself besides just being in the trenches getting bloodied up every day.
Yeah, right.
Right? You typically got to reach a point where you've been in the office for enough 12-hour days and you beat your brains out enough to where you can look up and say, next month, I'm pretty confident that X amount of dollars is going to come in if I step back and take a look at the business and that from a strategic standpoint, right? That's another point, right? I love how this conversation is flowing organically. A lot of entrepreneurs never graduate from that sheer brute force into being strategists. And the result of that is a lot of times 1 or 2 single bad decisions can derail everything that you've worked so hard to build because you've made a decision for the short term that doesn't fit your long-term vision and you didn't think about it.
Killed it. Love that.
Yeah. You've made a decision for the short term that doesn't fit your long-term vision, and those types of decisions can just come in and slice you to the bone, and you're done. You're out,
Wow.
You gotta be careful.
Really careful. That when we made the decision to jump into the private equity world in 2014 and start raising capital for fix and flips, that at that time made a lot of sense. The market was coming back. Everyone was jumping into real estate. People needed funding. There wasn't as much private money on the street yet. And we knew we could build a business and create consistent cash flow from the private equity thing. Now, really, the market's shifted where there's so much private money, there's so much capital available today. Are you ready to automate and explode your real estate investing? We're searching for extremely motivated individuals who are sick and tired of wasting time and want to finally see real results from their real estate investing business. We're searching for investors looking to get to the next level and become a bigger, better version of themselves while being a more successful real estate investing entrepreneur. Apply for mentoring and coaching at joshcantwellcoaching.com/podcast. That's joshcantwellcoaching.com/podcast. That's not really the biggest problem. And we're strategically positioned. We manage over $30 million of private money, my money and other people's money that's in our fund and in apartments and in one-off deals. I don't really need to go look for more private money, right? And so we've got that kind of pillar, if you will, or that part of the stool, three-legged stool, completely done. Like, don't need to raise another nickel, but we're probably still raise money organically from other people, right?
Yeah, sure.
Now it's just about finding deals, because that's where it's all at. We've created enough cash flow to have a certain amount of regular recurring income every single month, every single quarter, every single year. Or now it's just about making the best decisions. And what I find from guys that have a ruthless focus, they often will go into what I've seen, Jason, is they often go into a year and say, I really need to focus in my business on just doing this one thing really well, or do this one thing much better. They don't create a whole new business. They just really turn the screws on one part of their company for like 6 months or a year and dial that in. Then the next year, it's like, I want to really focus on optimizing this other part of my business because I've got this one totally dialed in. They're not creating whole new businesses. They're just really grinding and turning the screws on one part of the business they already have.
You find a small lever that opens a big door.
Yeah.
That's what you do. You can begin to identify, it's kind of like, if I were going to give an analogy, right? It's like if you're a running back, when you're first in the business, right? They hand you the ball and you got sheer brute force. You're just running up the gut. You're running into the line. You're getting like 1 yard, but you're young. You're just going to keep doing it, sheer brute force. Whereas once you have a business to a certain level, right? Then when you're handed the ball, you might stutter step once or twice to the left and the right because you're looking for the holes.
Yeah, like right? Le'Veon Bell. You ever see Le'Veon Bell run the ball? Le'Veon Bell, like when he was with the Steelers, he never just slammed into the line. He would get the ball and he would wait, and he was kind of danced at the line. He wasn't dancing left and right. He was looking. And looking for where's the hole going to open. Yeah, it was awesome, man. I still love to watch him run. Yeah.
But that takes patience, right? That takes a lot of patience and wisdom to be able to feel that pressure. Because while you're standing there looking for the hole, trust me, that pressure is coming around you.
I got to make a move.
That big 320-pound defensive end, his breath is on you by the time you think, oh wow, there's the hole, right? So you got to be able to sit in that pocket, feel that pressure, and be disciplined enough and patient enough to look for the hole and then go attack the hole.
That's fantastic. So there's a couple things here that we've talked about. I'm kind of writing down this list. There's some of the stuff that we're talking about just fantastic. Just to quickly go back here, the first thing we talked about was relationship building. Second thing we talked about was clearly defined vision, defined goals, values, objectives, what they do, who they are, what they stand for, what they stand against. Then I wrote down ruthless focus, right? Just 10 years building the business, turning the screws. And then the fourth thing that you said was the pivot from sheer brute force to strategist. I love that one. And the thing we just talked about, the fifth sort of trait is this discipline, this patience, the Le'Veon Bell analogy, right? The running back analogy, the discipline, the patience to see the hole, see an opportunity, but to be willing to wait to kind of research it out, make sure it's the right thing before you make that big decision. Because one decision, like you said, as a CEO, your whole team can get mobilized towards that decision. But if it's the wrong decision, they're mobilizing in the wrong direction.
Yeah. Well, and the longer you've been in business, the more seasoned you become. Those decisions, they can be a singular decision that has massive impact, right? And so I think that in order to develop that patience, what has to happen is in your early career, you discount what it takes to implement things, right? You completely discount. Like if you were going to do a particular project, it might take you a month. All of a sudden, when you delegate it to somebody in like 4 days, you're like, how come that's not done?
Yeah, right.
How come
What's
you don't
taking
got
you
that
so
done
long?
yet?
Come on.
Yeah, what? Hey, I'm going to have to fire you. I'm going to let you go. You know?
Well, it took you 7 years to understand it. Now you expect the other guy to know it in 96 hours. Come on, man. What's wrong? What's taking you?
Yes.
It's
So if
crazy.
you're asking yourself, like, how do I develop that patience? You've got to first embrace the fact that, like, you discount what it takes. Like you say, oh, we're just going to work on one thing this year. That's because if you're thinking that sounds crazy, like, well, one thing, you're not going to get anything. That's because you don't understand the depth at which you can go into particular facets of your business.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? Like so many people are worried, for example, right now in our space, so many people worry about leads and I need more leads. What if you just got ruthlessly and relentlessly focused on conversion?
Yeah, yeah.
Right? What if you looked at your funnel and you attacked the breakpoints, right? First of all, identifying what are they, and then how do we attack those breakpoints, right? Like a lot of people flipping houses, their breakpoint is they put 18 houses under contract that month and 9 of them fell out and 9 of them closed.
You're right.
Why? That's a break point. Why are 50% of our deals under contract falling out, right? What if you spent 6 months just figuring, the hell with more leads, close the ones you got.
Right. What if you followed up with the ones you have that you didn't get or the seller backed out, but then the seller is not selling that house to someone else. They're just sitting on it, waiting. They weren't ready to sell it. You follow up with them. Maybe it's your follow-up process. You don't need more leads. Like you said, conversion, figuring out why the 50% didn't close, and then how do you create a system to follow up with those people because they've already trusted you enough to put the house under contract with you the first time. So why not just keep that relationship going with them to follow up with them and make sure when they are ready to sell that you're the one that they talk to, as opposed to just like, shit, that's gone, need a new lead. Tougher to convert that new lead, cold lead, than the one that you already had under contract the first time.
You got to really understand your customer, right? It's a big deal. Most people in selling their house in that type of situation, they're in distress, they're embarrassed, that, like they don't really know you.
Right.
They don't really know you. So how do you close that gap in every step of the way, every part of the process to build trust and reinforce every decision they're making as they move through your funnel?
Yeah.
Right? What if you ask yourself that question? How do we build trust and reinforce each and every decision that they are making through the funnel? From the time they fill out a lead form, from the time they talk to the person that schedules the appointment, to the time the salesperson is introduced to them, to the time they visit that, like identify each of those milestones in your funnel and like how do you improve trust at each and every turn instead of just showing up in your freaking jeans and t-shirts and being like, here's what's wrong with your house and why you should sell it to me for nothing.
Right.
Like,
right. I mean,
be a professional.
This one little niche that Jason's talking about, this build trust and identify, how to improve trust, is literally, like I talked about a few minutes ago, that's the one screw that you spend the entire year working on. Right?
Yeah.
Whereas most people are like, I'm already flipping 10 houses a month. I'm going to go start a e-com business, or I'm going to start selling supplements. Like, what? Why? Why don't you just focus on taking the business that's flipping 10 houses a month and focus on doubling that to 20? And you can do that by grabbing one little tiny lever in your business and screwing that for the next 3 months, 6 months, turn it. And then all of a sudden, like, oh my God, we are flipping 15, 20 houses a month. And I'm not working as hard because my team leveled up. My team is better, right?
This is a great transition to one more key characteristic of the rock stars, right? Typically the way you make those, hey, I'm going to go from 10 to 20 houses. Typically the way you make those transitions is by knowing your numbers, right? Because a lot of times, like for example, the example we just talked about, right? If you're going to work on identifying the breakpoint in your funnel so you can increase conversion instead of generating more leads, you typically have to be able to figure out what is the breakpoint in my funnel. Right? So if you don't know how many leads turn to appointments, how many appointments turn to contracts, how many contracts fall out, if you don't know your numbers through the funnel, right? If you don't know your metrics and your KPIs, you don't have the data often to make those strategic decisions, right? It's kind of like the same back to the football analogy, right? When you stand in there looking for that hole, right? He's got to process data. He's up. He's right. You got to be able to do the same thing. If you want to find the hole in your business so you can fill it and run through it, you've got to know your metrics. You got to know your numbers to some degree.
Yeah. I think Kevin O'Leary, when he spoke at one of my events a couple years ago, he said that they studied all of the successful businesses that had gotten funded on Shark Tank, and every single business that got funded there was, I think, 3 characteristics that every single one of them had. And one of them was, to your point, Jason, was that they knew their numbers inside and out. And Kevin, says in a funny way, if you don't know your numbers, then you deserve to die and never see you again. Your business deserves a burn in hell in perpetuity, right?
Right.
So
right. Perpetuity, of course.
Perpetuity, of course. It loves perpetuity. But he talked about either if you're the CEO and analyzed all the businesses that got funded on Shark Tank, either the CEO knew their numbers back and forth. That was one of the characteristics of getting funded. Or if they were the sales guy, the visionary that didn't know all the numbers, they had a CFO or a COO who knew the numbers inside and out. And if you know these companies that have started, they're all mom and pops, they're all bootstrapping it. Every single one that a multimillionaire or billionaire investor invested in, if you knew the characteristic was, they all knew their numbers, they knew their data,
Yeah.
then wouldn't you just make that part of your soul, part of your business, that I have to know my numbers inside and out. I have to get good data, relevant data, know where it's falling out, know what's making us money, what's not, and focus on the things that are truly driving it home. Jason, you know how it is. Marketing is a playground. It's 20%. When we start a new funnel of any kind in any business, 80% of the shit we try doesn't work.
Yeah. You're buying data.
You're buying data. You're failing to get data.
The first few months, you're buying data.
In my newest real estate investing book, The Flip System, you'll learn the proven secrets and strategies that I've used to be a successful real estate investor. You'll also hear the story of my journey from quitting my job to doing over 2,000 units of apartments. The Flip System is now available for a limited time, and you can grab your free copy at getflipsystem.com/podcast. You'll learn the same proven principles and secrets and investing strategies that I used to quit my job and pursue a life of financial freedom. In this book, I'm sharing exactly how I was able to personally close over 750 profitable real estate deals, make over 400 private lender loans, raise over $30 million, and acquire over 2,000 units of cash flowing apartments. Get my newest book now for free at getflipsystem.com/podcast. That's getflipsystem.com/podcast.
I mean, we just launched we're attacking a breakpoint in our funnel. And we just launched it about 2 weeks ago. We have no idea if it's going to work or not. And I've spent a lot of time, effort, energy, and money into building it. And you don't really have any idea if it's going to work or not until you put it on the street. Right.
Got to put it out to the market.
All of this stuff is tied together, right? We talk about being a strategist, but it's difficult to be a strategist if you don't know your numbers, because your numbers, your data are what allow you to make strategic decisions. You know? Like, for example, when I look at 2020 and looking at some of the capital expenditures that we're staring down as far as improving the business, you're thinking, okay, are we going to spend that money? And my data, my analytics, we have a meeting in December, on December 9th in San Diego. And I know, because of historical analytics, we're a month out from that meeting, and I already know within a 5% variance of what our gross revenue will be and what our net revenue will be.
Right.
Because of historic patterns, right? Now, knowing that, feeling comfortable with what's going to happen in December, I am now making decisions that might take place in February or March about money I'm willing to spend, because data tells me we're going to have a good quarter.
Yeah.
Right? And so when you know your analytics, when you know your KPIs, those are the things that allow you to be strategic.
Yeah, I love it. And there's a big difference I think we need to acknowledge. Jason, myself, businesses that we've run, you can't just all of a sudden become a strategist and a visionary and know your numbers really on day one.
Yeah.
You have to have that
Yeah.
on your mind. Like, but look, on day one, if you're building your business, you're just getting going, you got to just freaking sprint, man. You got to work hard. You got to work long. You got to put in a lot of time. You got to hire players for years and years and years.
Yeah.
And just build. Same thing Kevin O'Leary told me when we were getting ready for our event. He was telling me that the CEO that can build a business to $5 million is truly a CEO that can just do sheer brute force, like you and I talked about. But after 5 million, all the businesses that he's seen grow beyond 5 million is there's a pivot at 5 million where the CEO has to become or has to bring on the visionary and the strategist. If the CEO is only capable of just sheer brute force, then just stay in the sheer brute force stage and just become that ultimate salesperson that's just hustling, traveling, speaking. Do that. But you've got to have someone else that to take it beyond 5 million. It's got to be somebody that can like see around corners, see blind spots, and then create and say, we've got to invest money here in order to fix this blind spot, fix this problem in our business, fix where the funnel's leaking. And that's where a business can go from 5 million to 50 million. Because sheer brute force only gets you to 5 million.
And another killer transition point is the best of the best realize that once they get past a certain point, they're not flipping houses, they're building a team.
Yeah.
Right? Your role and responsibility shifts in the beginning from flipping houses or buying a small apartment complex to building the team that does those things. Like you don't wake up thinking about like materials or paint colors. You wake up thinking about, okay, we're growing. I need to find a project manager.
And I need to train the shit out of them and make sure they're good and not judge them in the first 2 weeks and make sure we invest time and effort and money and talent for 6 months or a year and longer to make sure that they stay and they stick.
That's a critical error.
Then you got to make sure that nobody steals them when they're good.
I'm guilty of it, right?
No doubt.
It's like
too.
You have this philosophy when you first start building a team. You're just like, hey, see that empty seat right there? Go sit in it, make me money, and don't ask me any questions all day long.
Right.
Cool.
You good with that? That's what I want. You good with that?
Yeah. Hey, do you think you could leave me alone all day today?
Yeah. I just want to go to my office and drink coffee and read the news.
You have to pour. And I don't have a big team, so I'm not over here, and I don't want one, quite honestly. But I am very conscious of the fact that when we add selectively, you have to pour into people, right? And you have to resist that temptation. Oh my gosh, I just hired this person, $175,000 a year, fit like $15,000 a month, and it's going to take them 6 months. That's $100,000 hole, and you got to it goes back to that wisdom, that patience of understanding. Yeah, I'm going to eat a crap sandwich for a little bit, but that wave is going to turn, right? And that $100,000 hole while they're training is going to flip over into $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 profit.
Right.
And in the process, you get to groom someone and impact their life versus just impacting yours.
Right. Love it.
Yeah.
Jason, we've got to kind of wrap up. I want to make sure if you've got anything else, this is the ton of nuggets, man. Love it. That I want to leave room just in case there's one more thing. If there's not, we're good. We can wrap because I've got an amazing amount of good content out of this, and I want to spit this back before we wrap up. But any kind of final thoughts or anything else that's on your mind as far as traits?
Yeah, we'll give you one more thing. We'll make it short and sweet.
Perfect.
Right. a lot of entrepreneurs in a short period of time, because of that grit, that grind, that I got the ball, I'm running up the gut. That beating that you take, you lose enthusiasm about your core business. Mm-hmm. It's commonplace, right? If you get to feeling that way, understand that your core business should be your cash cow. And if you've put in enough time and enough grit to where you feel that way, you're probably in a spot where your cash cow should begin creating your cash flow, right? You've heard the story with Josh talked about, hey, we were doing a lot of single families, but we've transitioned. That's because he's got a business firing on all cylinders, pushing out a bunch of money. And now all of that active income's purpose becomes to create passive income.
Right.
Right. And so a lot of times you're like, oh, I don't like my business. I can't stand. I'm tired. I'm beat down. I'm the grind. It's at that point that you have to look at your core business with a different set of eyes and understand that its function in your life has or should change, in that it is now feeding the next phase of your business, which is building assets and cash flow.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thanks for dropping that last bomb, guys. So I just want to restate these because there's a lot of great nuggets that I've taken away from this, and I want to make sure that we summarize this in a proper way. So number one, we talked about traits of elite entrepreneurs and traits of elite real estate investors is they emphatically and ruthlessly build relationships. Number two, they have a clearly defined vision, which includes their values, objectives, who they are, what they do, what they stand for, and what they stand against. Number three, they have a ruthless focus on their core business for years and years and years, and they're just continuing to turn the screws. Number four, I wrote down, they pivot from sheer brute force to becoming a strategist, and that often happens at the end of the sprint phase. We mentioned Kevin O'Leary and the $5 million mark. Number five, I wrote down, they have discipline and patience to kind of look for the hole, like we talked about the Le'Veon Bell analogy. Number six, they have a singular decisions. They realize how important the singular decisions are. That when you're the CEO, you're the strategist, you're the visionary, and you decide to make a very important decision, everyone else is going to mobilize behind that. You got to realize that that is a very important decision, and it can make a massive impact positively or a massive impact negatively. Number seven, I wrote down right here, building trust and identifying milestones and improving trust within your customers and within your employees. Number eight, know your numbers. And number nine, the best of the best realize that they're no longer just building a business and driving for cash flow. Number nine was they're realize that they're building a team. They're investing in their employees. They're investing in their employees leveling up. And finally, number 10 was the pivot, where if you're losing enthusiasm, is to pivot your cash cow into passive cash flow. So, Jason, I don't know that we had any of this scripted. It just turned out to be 10. Yeah. It turned out to be a phenomenal discussion, man. So thank you. I just want to express my gratitude
I'm over here
for this.
Sitting like, dude, I want to copy this right away. I want to put this in my funnel because this is what we do, right? This is like, I know we're getting to that part where anything you want to say. And it's like, this is all this stuff we talked about. That's what we do. When we started this, I said at CG, we take high caliber real estate investors, right? Put them on the fast track to becoming visionary leaders that scale their business, build wealth, and give back. And everything we talked about today, like that's it right there. Those are all the things. You know? Jason,
did you ever author a book? Did you ever write a book, or did you just Collective Genius have? That's it right there.
No.
Take this interview, right?
Yeah.
Expand on this, right? I mean, I can see people buying millions of copies of a book around that concept, these 10 principles. So if you ever think about it, man, there's
a great book if you haven't read it that encompasses a lot of this, and it's Scaling Up is one book that encompasses a lot of this, and then is it Rocket Fuel?
Rocket Fuel and Scaling Up. Nice.
Yeah. You want to look up EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating Systems.
Yeah.
That's those are game changers right there.
Well, listen, Jason,
they'll tell you how to go from flipping houses to running a business.
Yeah, Scaling Up, Rocket Fuel, EOS, phenomenal stuff today, Jason. I appreciate it. Our audience is absolutely going to love it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, our audience is real estate investors, entrepreneurs, both active and passive. If any of our audience wants to learn more about Collective Genius, join your group, attend a session. Where can they get more information?
Sure. You are welcome to go to thecollectivegenius.com. That's www.thecollectivegenius.com. This is for high caliber investors. We have some minimums in place, but when you go there, we'll tell you all about it. It's pretty easy process. It's laid back. We are not, we're here to find people that we can help and that can help, that can help us grow as an organization, and we can help you grow as a business person and as a spouse and as a parent and everything else along the way. We're looking for the right fit. And so we go through a process where we jump on the phone and figure that out. We'll specifically attack the challenges you want to address and tell you who we can connect you to. And if at the end we're like, hey, you guys sound pretty cool and we think you sound pretty cool, you come check us out at our next event, risk-free. We go through the process for 3 days with each other, and at the end, if it's a fit, cool, and if it's not, that's okay too. So, super laid back. Go check us out.
Yeah, love it. thecollectivegenius.com. There you have it from Jason Medley, the founder and CEO of The Collective Genius. Jason, can't express how grateful I am, how excited I am to pull this together and have so much fun with you today. You bet.
Yeah, I had a blast, man. Thanks for having me on. I wish everybody listening much success.
Absolutely.
And a killer 2020.
You've been listening to Josh Cantwell and the Accelerated Investor Podcast. Leave a comment on our iTunes channel and let us know what you want to learn next or who you'd like Josh to interview. While you're there, give us a 5-star rating and make sure to subscribe so you can be the first to hear new episodes. Follow Josh Cantwell and his companies, Strategic Real Estate Coach and Freeland Ventures, on all social media platforms now, and stay up to date on new training and investment opportunities. To start your journey toward the lifestyle you've always dreamed of, apply for coaching at joshcantwellcoaching.com.